Khalid ibn al-Walid, and we all know Khalid ibn al-Walid radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. And it was mentioned on his deathbed, there wasn't a place, a position on his body, except that there was wound or a wound on that position. And a marking on that position. Al-Bara was similar. Al-Bara was similar. When he was martyred for the sake of Allah, when he achieved what he wanted and asked Allah Azza wa Jal for, he died with all wounds on his body. So on that day, Khalid ibn al-Walid radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, as some of the versions in the biographies they mention, when the Muslims likewise were undergoing a bit of pressure, he called onto Al-Bara for Khalid to get Al-Bara involved. Khalid is Khalid, and for him to get Al-Bara involved now, you know, Al-Bara is one of the courageous of those who have courage, just like all of them were. So then, speaking to Al-Bara, we need to do something tactically, strategically, etc. Al-Bara being Al-Bara, and this is what Umar radiyallahu ta'ala mentioned, he stood and he made an announcement to the Muslims. He said, "O Muslims, don't think of going back to Al-Madinah, for you have no Al-Madinah today. Don't think of going back to Al-Madinah, for you have no Al-Madinah today. It is Allah and it is Jannah." And then he went through the lines, shaking the floor beneath the enemies until they reached the enemies retreating. They forced them to reach a certain garden and a fortress. This fortress, this garden known as Hadiqa, had a special name. Hadiqatul Maut. This garden that they had retreated to with these high walls like a fortress, it was known as the Garden of Death. The Garden of, when you have a garden named like that, you know there's going to be a lot that's happening there. So they retreated until they reached what's known as the Garden of Death. And the enemy was also firm, subhanallah, was also firm. They would not retreat in a way like running away. They retreated to this garden to try to be tactical. So Al-Bara radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, he told his Sahaba, place me on a shield. Place me on a shield, because he was a light man, he wasn't heavy. Place me on a shield and raise the shield over the walls of the fortress with your spears. I will go in and I will fight as much as I need to until I open the door of the fortress or I die. One of them. And subhanallah, the Sahaba, they did it because they needed to get through. And it was mentioned there was approximately 12,000 of the enemy behind this fortress wall. So they raised Al-Bara radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, and they plunged him or lunged him into the fortress, and eventually the door opened.